Hello again. This is episode 3, third section of your program for starting Delphi. So we left off with this. We were busy loading a picture file and my computer decided to take very long. So I closed everything and started, and luckily I did save. It's very important, people, when you have a program going, do file, save all. Now you see I haven't got a save all there available, so if I do file, save as, it's going to ask me to navigate to a folder. If I click file and save, I know that I've saved this program in the folder. You saw me do it. But if I click file and save, it will save the unit only. So I have to do file, save as, and in the first program ever, correct folder, make sure that's the correct folder, and then you'll see file name there, and that will be that one. It will overwrite that one, say yes, and then you have to go and do file save project as well. But now you see file save all is sitting there, so I don't even have to do that. Just use file save all. I know I'll save both. Just a little important thing. Remember, file save all. Obviously it's doing that again to me, so I'm going to save project as. So if you don't see the file save all, do file save as, save the unit, and say if you want to replace, and then file save project as, and then you can replace that as well. The two things have to be saved. Okay, it's a bit of an issue, but you must always keep your program saved for any changes, in case you can do hours, you can spend hours programming and then you can lose everything that you've done. There's nothing worse than that. So always do file and save as, save project as, or file save. Alright, now we're going to get on to this picture. We made all of these clear because they're ready for input. We're now going to go to the, for output, to send our display items there. Then we're going to go to the image. We were doing the image. We're going to load a picture onto the image. Now the thing is, with the picture, you have to have a picture already saved in the program folder. This is my program folder. You have to have some pictures there. I've got a keyboard and I've got soap. I'm going to initialize this picture with a different picture to which I'm going with a picture, and I'm going to give it the keyboard. I'm going to put the keyboard in there. So I'm going to click on picture component, go to the picture property, or image component, sorry, that's an image component, it's got nothing on it displayed. Go to the picture property of the image, click the three dots, and then click load, and then navigate to the folder. And if you have the pictures already inside your folder, they will automatically come up. I'm going to choose the keyboard, click on open, and click on OK. Now as you can see, the keyboard looks a bit messy, so I have to go and make sure that it fits the stretch property over here of the image component. If I click true, then it automatically puts it into the picture, the image component. As you can see, stretch equals true. Right, now we'll get ready for displaying all of our input into the output. Right, so let's say the person's going to type their name in there, okay, and then we want to take the name and display it. Let's say we display it on the label. Alright, so in the button process, because it's the obvious one that we use to write code, we forgot to put the name here. Change the caption. The caption of the button is BTN process. That doesn't look right. We don't want to give our program to someone and they say, oh, but what is BTN process? We must change the caption property of the button to a word that they, or click here, or whatever. Click here. So we can say click here. Then the user knows what to do. So you type in there and then click there. Alright, they're going to type their name in there, and if you want to go and display it on the label, then we need an on-click event of the button. Now you can just double click the button and you get to the on-click event. Obviously, as I showed you before, the events of each object are very similar, and you can go and double click on any one of these here, like we did before, but we're not going to. We're going to use our on-click event. As you can see, when I double click the button, this process was already done. This procedure was already created. We can do it there, or we can just double click the button. The easiest way is just to double click your buttons, and then you know you're in the on-click event. But don't just double click any component here. We have to, specifically for this button, we're going to use the on-click event. There's on-click events for every single component. When you double click them, you will get an on-click event, but we don't actually want to have that there. It's not going to work for us this time, so we're going to rather just have a click here button, and in this click here button, everything that's going to be input by the user here will be displayed on these different panels, these different objects on this output panel. We have a shape though, we can't really display things on shapes, but we can change the picture and we can change the shape when we click here. So click here is going to take all this input and display it in a certain manner on each of these different objects on the right. Right, so double click the button. Let's say the user types their name in the edit box, which is a normal thing that we do normally. So what we do is we have to take that name and go and put it in the label. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the label name, which is LBL output dot caption property, is going to be equal to the text property of the edit. Remember we deleted the text property earlier. You might remember that. So that's a simple one. So we say, what is the name of the edit box? EDT input dot text. You have to use the text property. So this is the label as a caption property, which we're going to fill with the text property of the edit box called EDT input. So you have to have the name of the label, choose the caption property because that is what's going to be filled. It's a string, can go in there, and the string from the edit box will be put into the label. So let's go and see what happens when we go and type something in. Jane Doe, and click here, and there's the name displayed in the label. Okay, so that was easy. The thing you must remember that everything that gets displayed here, except for the picture, the image, and the shape, those are two different types of components. All of these other things have to be strings. Everything that must be displayed here has to be text or strings. And everything that's shown on the screen is a string except for the spin edit, these buttons here, those are like checkboxes, and these. And then the calendars are dates actually. So they work differently. So the things that we're going to do, the easiest ones we will do is, and I'll reorganize it so that you can see that it's easier. When the person chooses, so we'll just reorganize this a bit so you can make it easier for you to understand what we're actually doing here. I'm grouping the different data types here. I'll spin edit and go right down over there because it's a very special one. And then our calendars are together over here. And our little spin edit, that's very, very different to all the others. So all of these three components have a text property that we're going to use. And we will display those three components into, let's say, let's put the name, we put the name on the label. We're going to choose a, what are we going to choose on this thing? I forgot to put a little label saying what we're choosing. Hey, we were choosing one and choosing one of those. But anyway, and we know that is the sweets and the cool drink and the ice cream, and this is the healthy stuff. So they're going to choose, the user's going to choose one of them like such. So they type their name and then they choose, okay, and then they choose one of those. And when we click here, we want ice cream to go into this, and potatoes must go on the panel. I know it doesn't really make much sense, but at least you can understand how these three are text properties. So double click. When we want to display something on the edit box, EDT output, that's EDT input, and that's EDT output, well, we'll use the .text property for EDT output to put things in it. So we'll say EDT output.text equals, and it's going to be the Combobox CMB input.text. CMB input.text. And we can go and check that out. So take note how we put things into the output components. We name them and we say equal, an assignment statement with a colon in front of it, colon and equals, that's your assignment statement. Then the name of the input component and the property that we are copying basically into the caption of the label. So the text is that property that we're putting into the caption of the label. And then there's a semicolon after that. After each line, at the end of each line you have to put a semicolon. Right, so when we run this program you'll see that I'll type Jane Doe and then we'll choose a item there and click here, and there you can see it's displayed. Now we'll do the same with the list box. That is a list box. The list box has a similar thing. The list box also has a .text property. It's an easy, wait, the list box does not have a .text property. We'll have to use the item index there. It's a little bit more complicated. Luckily the Combobox has a .text property there, which means whatever's been chosen and fills in there. But the Combobox and the list box both have item indexes. In other words, their items are numbered, and they're numbered from 0. And the item index property of the list box will have it numbered from 0. It's an integer, and we have to basically, you'll see item index is that, and the item index doesn't have a item index, but we're going to see how it works. We don't use a list box very often. I haven't anyway, so, but we're going to go for it. Let's go and see what comes up when we type. So we have list lbx t input. Well, that was a bit silly. I gave it a name lbx t input. I should have just lbx input. There, lbx input. lbx input is going to go into the panel. So we'll say panel pnl display.caption equals, because the caption property of the panel is what gets displayed on the panel. PNL out, it's PNL display dot caption equals lbx input dot items and then square brackets lbx input dot item index. Now unfortunately this is something we just have to memorize. We're going to run the program and we'll go and look at that code again and see what happens when we use the list box. So I'm clicking on potatoes and I'll click here and there it goes. If I click on cool drink and type a name and click here, and everything is working fine. Now the list box doesn't have the facility of .items. It has an item index that we have to use. I mean .text doesn't have the .text property that we can use conveniently. It has to have a .items, and then in square brackets you've got to put in an integer, a number. What number item did the user choose? They chose either a 0, a naught for broccoli, a 1 for potatoes, and a 2 for carrots, because it starts numbering naught. That's what the programming does. The process starts numbering from 0. The combo box is actually exactly the same, but it also has this added feature that it's easier to go and put that in, the .text property. We could do the same with the combo box. Put in .items, .item index, .items, and then cmb input .item index, cmb input .item index. Can you see that? Very long story. Yes, I told you we're throwing you in at the deep end here, but that's fine. You can do it. It's the output component, assignment statement, combo box input .items. Remember when we set it up, when we first put our items in, what did we do? We went to items and the 3 dots, and then we typed them all in. Remember? You must remember that the item index is the number. 0 for cool drink, 1 for ice cream, 2 for chips, and 3 for chocolate. That is what they are numbered as. 0, 1, 2, 3. And that is what we're using here for the display into this edit box. CMB input.items, and then in square brackets we quote the combo box name again, and then .item index. So that is how you can transfer the input over here onto those 3 things. You must remember that the label is a .caption, the edit is a .text, and the panel is a .caption. These are all things that you have to remember. Practice, and then you will not find it difficult. Now we're going to get to the spin. Let's do the spin edit first before we do these difficult ones. The spin edit is different to these because they are straight up strings. Okay, the string in the edit box, the string in the edit box goes into the string part. The caption is a text, and that's also text. It is text, but caption is also a string. So they're both strings. The panel is a string, and then when we have this big bit of code here, that is a string, and that is also a string. And we know that we could use cmb input.text as well. But let's get on to the spin edit. The spin edit, whatever gets added into the spin edit, let's run the program and you'll see what happens to the spin edit. When we choose a number, it's actually an integer. Can you see? You can only choose integers. You can choose negative integers as well. So you can choose an integer there, and then you have to display it. But here's the thing. Whatever you see here on this form, especially what gets typed in there, and typed in there, and typed in there, those are strings. But what gets typed in here, it's an integer. And then these are another story altogether. Those are true and false values. And then those 2 calendars are dates. But the integers are the tricky ones because we want to display whatever number was chosen here, we want to display it somewhere. We are going to display it in the label. We're going to add it to the label that the person, the age of the person. It's going to be the person's name and then their age. So we're going to do something we do some string handling right from the start. When you double click the button, we want the caption equal to the previous caption, the name of the person that was put there already, and we're going to join that with a plus sign to, let's say we want to put the age of the person on a different line. Okay, so let's not we're not going to join a space. Okay, we can do that. We can write the word age equals, okay, and then can you see the plus signs? We're putting strings together. We can have the previous caption of the person, because we put the caption in from the edit box there. So our new caption, this is what we're saying, our new caption, lbl_output.caption, is the previous caption added to, plus sign is for joining strings together. Another fancy word for it is concatenating strings. And we are going to add this string in single inverted commas. Can you see the single inverted commas? That means that we are now working with a string, and that plus sign, this caption is a string, and then join that to these words, and take note I've put a space there so that it doesn't squash up together to the name of the person, and then I make another space, and that in single inverted commas represents a string, and then I'm going to join that to sed input dot value. But there's going to be a big problem here. Sed input dot value is the property of the spin edit that when we want to read from the spin edit, we want to see what it is, we want to put it somewhere, we use the dot value property. If you look on the object inspector, the properties of the spin edit, I'm clicking on the spin edit, and you can also find it over here and click on the spin edit, and you'll see the value property at the moment is 0. You can change that here, but we don't normally do that. We are basically getting the value property and putting it in a string, and that is not allowed. The value is an integer. The value property is an integer type of data, so that value must be converted to a string, and we use this int to string, yes, with 2 T's in the middle there. Int to string, like such. Now I'm just going to put this on a new line. Oh, I don't have to. Okay, so there it is. That is your line for adding the age to the caption that's already existing. That means the caption that's already there, we're going to add this little string, and then we're going to add another string. How do I know it's a string? Well, I've got the spin edit dot value, and I converted it to a string because the caption is a string. Now this is what programming is all about. See this assignment statement here? Your left-hand side data type must match the data type of the right-hand side. If you can get that right, then you're 90% on the way. So the data type on the left-hand side here of that assignment statement happens to be a caption. Therefore, you have to make sure that everything on the right-hand side of that assignment statement is also a string. Caption is a string on the left-hand side. Caption is a string here. That is a string. And then we're joining the value converted to a string. We have to convert the spin edit to a string. It's one only component on the form that is an integer. This spin edit here is the only component that you're going to be working with on the form that is an integer data type. String data type, string data type, string. And of course these two are very special ones, weren't they? We had to refer to them as this long story. Yep, memorize it, guys. Then we're going to go, so we've done that, okay? So when we click here, that should happen. Let's go and see what happens when we click there. I'm going to type the name, and I'm going to choose a cool thing to eat and a not so cool thing to eat, and I'm going to choose an age. You can even type a number in here, and then click here, and then you'll see Jane age equals 23. What if you wanted to have those two on two separate lines? The name of the person and then the age underneath. Well, that's quite easy. I'll show you. We all only have to do the following. A hash. We delete that. No, don't delete the string. We're going to say plus hash 13 plus. The hash 13 is going to introduce like a return key when you're basically saying enter and then right on the next line. That hash 13 is a special code that you use to introduce a new line, and I'll show you how it works. Jane Doe, and type the age, click here, oops, out of bounds. Okay, what's going on here now? Oh, I never chose anything from the combo box, so it was saying, nah, we can't find the item index. Item index is -1. Guess what? The item index is, if nothing is selected here, nothing is selected beforehand, the item index is default to -1. Can't display. So we actually do have to choose something from the combo box. You can write in code, of course, later on, if the combo box is -1, or the list box is -1, then you can write code. Okay, I didn't put in an age. Alright, there we go. Can you see it's moved onto a new line? The #13 did that for us. Okay. So, I can take this space away in the front of age now. Right, the next thing that we're going to do is read, what shall we do? Which is the easiest one? I think the dates are the easiest, actually, believe it or not. So, these are difficult because they're Boolean data types. So, these are calendar controls, and they have date properties. If you can go and check it out, we go over here and we'll see properties, and you'll see a month is 4, because it's actually displaying only today's month. But you can make it display a different month. You can change it there. So the month property is there. There's a day property as well. So we can work with that. Day and a month. And then over here we have the date. The date of the date property is very specific there. It's a date data type. So far we've had integers here and we've had strings there, but these two have a combination. This one has a date data type, and then for the month and the day they are integers. So we remember that we can pull out the day and the month of all of, and the year even, of the calendar. We can pull out, over here we're going to refer to the month and the day. Okay, so we can get the day property of there. The month is set to today's month, which is 4 of the calendar property. The month calendar property, however, has a whole date property. So we're going to see how we're going to use these. I'm going to display, we forgot to put things in the Richard in the memo, hey, because that's quite tricky. But anyway, we'll use this one to display in the memo, and we'll use that one to display in the Richard. Okay, so we'll do that. So in the click here button, I'm going to read the day and the month off this cal input and put it into the memo. Now the day and the month property are integers, by the way. The date property, however, is a date data type. So far we've had strings and integers. Now we're going to deal with date data types, but you can pull out the months. You can get the month from the calendar and display it into the memo. So let's do that first. So double click the button, click event, because everything's happening there. And if you want to display in the memo, to display anything in the memo, you have to say the name of the memo, mem output dot lines dot add. That's what you have to do. Okay, and then you have to put a string in brackets. Don't forget about the semicolon. Now the string has to go into brackets. We wanted to put the months of that cal input. Cal input dot month. Only problem is month is an integer, and it tells us that there. So guess what we have to do? Int to string and put that whole thing in brackets there. See what I did? Right. So, but what if I want to say the word month? Then I must write the word month in front. Single inverted commas, single inverted month equals, and then a join statement. So there we go. Now if I want to display the day that's displayed there, that is chosen by the user, day equals, and over here I write the word day. Day is an integer, month is an integer. Both have to be converted to string. So when the user clicks on the calendar, clicking on, let's say I'm going to click on 14th, just to be funny, I click here, oops, you know what's happening? Because my Combobox. By the way, when that error message happens, and you see you're still actually in run mode, basically, you go to run and program reset. You see the error message that came up? It's because I hadn't put anything in the combo box. What I'm going to do is I'm going to default these combo boxes to some values. So we don't have that problem again. We've dealt with them, we know how to work with them. But I'm just going to go to run program reset, and that will reset everything. We'll stop the program, we can carry on with our code. But in the meantime, I'm just going to change the item index here so that and the item index of the list box also, although actually we can't change the item index of the list box, unfortunately. What we can do in code, we can say the item is, we can't change it here in runtime, before runtime. This is what we do before we run the program. We make changes like we have been doing up to now. We're now dealing with runtime, but in this one, the list box input, LBX input, I have to actually give it a number because, you know, LBX input dot item index equals, let's choose the number 2. Okay, and then it won't bomb out. So you'll see if we don't type anything in it, it still will run. So let's run it again. We were trying to see what happens when you display the month and the year. So as you can see, it has been, things have been displayed. And we click here, and they will see. If I choose a different month, and as you can see, this memo is adding lines to it all the time. We're not clearing the memo. It adds all the lines to it. Every time we click the button, I'm going to click on this one, then it adds another 2 lines. The month is still 4 because it's set. It's a system date, which is April now, so that is why it's set to 4. So we can change the month number in code, and we can do that. So, and we can also clear this memo before we go and display anything, and otherwise it's just going to look, you can't see everything. So I'm going to say, if I want to change the month that we're dealing with, and I don't want it to be 4, so I'll say cal input dot month equals, let's make it 5. Oops. And then we also want to clear the memo, so that each time we click the button, everything is removed, and then we can go and display what we want to display again. So clear the memo, and then we add those. And when you click the button again, we clear the memo, and then we display that again. Then we click the button again, clear the memo, and display again. Right, so now we're going to put in, we've got the month numbers in, we've changed the month in code. It's set on month 4, but I'm changing it in code to month 5. Don't worry, I'm not going to fill in those things because it's too irritating. We only have to worry about these 2. But anyway, we're back to this. Can you see when I click again, I'm choose a different day, and then we have the day displayed there. What if you wanted to find what the actual date is of the calendar? Well, we could go and put that in. Let's see what happens if I do this. Mem output dot lines dot add date today. The date today is plus, now cal input dot date does not exist. Okay, you can't use a dot date property for this particular calendar input, so it's not really useful. It's basically for a quick date choosing. The person chooses a date. You have to actually physically change the month, which month you're dealing with. If you want today's date, then you do this following. You say date to string. Remember we did int to string, now we're doing date to string. There is a reserved word in Delphi called date, and that will display today's date. So let's see if it happens. Date to string instead of into string. Everything has to be converted to a string for displaying. And that's the problem. All of these things can only display strings. The label, the edit, the panel, the memo, the rich edit, they can only display strings. If you want to display anything in there, you have to convert it to a string. So a date has to be converted to a string, an int has to be converted to a string, so on. So when you display this, when you click the button, see what happens. We have set the month to 5, and as you can see, today's date is displayed there, 2020-0404. It's almost like a palindrome, but it's not. Never mind. There we go, 2020-0404. Today's date is displayed. I can maybe widen that memo a bit so we can see everything. Slightly. Maybe that's overkill. Right, so there we've done that one. That one, as you can see, the calendar, so it's not so nice to use. This one is a very useful calendar, and it has similar properties, day, month, and date, but we can actually change the date that we want to show on here, and we do it in a different way. But if you want to read off the day and the month, it's the same thing. But let's say we're going to display them in the rich edit this time. We'll display today's date, or the date that is chosen here on the calendar. We'll display the day, the month, and today's date just for fun. So we're displaying in the rich edit, and the rich edit is called red output, and it's the same as a memo, dot lines, dot add. And I can even copy and paste this stuff, and I'm going to do that because that's what I do. I like doing copying and pasting. It saves my time. And so instead of, and guys, there's a nice autofill handle over there, sync edit mode, I'm going to type red output, lines.add, and instead of cal input, I'm going to call it mcal input. Let's see what happens when I run the program. Everything's fine. Oops, doesn't like the dot month property at all. So let's go and check out this date component, this month calendar date, T month calendar. You can't use the month and the day on this one. You can only use date. And if you want to pull out the day and the month, you have to use a function called month and day. So let's try that out. In the button click event, I'm going to say month, comma, bracket. You can only pull out the date property, and then you can say day, open brackets, dot date. So this month calendar only deals with date. Okay, there's a whole lot of brackets going on here. I'm just adding another one. Let's explain it a bit clearer. Remember that the rich edit, just like the memo, you use .lines.add, and we're joining a string called month. We're joining that to another string, into string. Why? Because the month is a function that takes the month from the date property of the calendar called mcal input, because it's not the same calendar as this other simple calendar. This is a proper month calendar which has a full date, and you can change that. But the month prop is a function that returns an integer which represents the month, and it works on the date of the month cal input, mcal input calendar. So the date property is not the same as this word here, date. Date is a reserved word in Delphi which will return today's date no matter where you use it, but you have to say date to string. Over here we're taking the date property from the calendar, and basically it's an integer. We're taking it and sending it to this month function. The function will return an integer, and we convert that to string. So this is how it's written for day as well. The day function takes this and pulls out the day from this date, and that is the day is an integer variable. Well, it's an integer data type, day and month are integers, and then it displays, and there we have it there. What about the year? Yep, we can do the year as well. We can take out the year from the date of that calendar. I'm putting it up here, and I'll just use the word year. What about the actual date today? Well, this is today's date, but what if you want to display the date from the calendar, not today's date? Well, you say date to string, and then you put the calendar component name dot date. Now take note that date did not work, the dot date did not work on this one, so we don't use that one very often. This one is quite a good one to use, and remember that when you do your programming, your your projects for the year. So the day today is date to string. Well, it's not today's date. Let's write this rather as the calendar date, the date that is chosen on the calendar. Because remember, when we run this program, what's going to happen? Let's run the program and see. Oops, I have errors. Interesting year. What year? Oh, right, we don't have a year. I thought we could get the year. No, you can't. And you can't actually get the month either. You have to actually copy the month out. I thought there was a function for that. Oh my word. I must be getting tired. We can write a function for that, but we're not going to. There's a different method of getting the month and year. You've got to copy the string. So let's do that. We'll copy the month out of the but add. I'm imagining there's a month and a day and a year function, but there isn't. You actually have to copy it from the date. What I'm going to do is display the date of the... Let's display the date of the calendar first, and then we'll go and copy the year, month, and the date afterwards. So in other words, we're going to write our own little function to copy the month, day, and year. I'm thinking I'm in another programming language right now, so sorry for that. Right, so when we click here, what have we got in our code? We're displaying the month that from the calendar that was chosen on this component. What if the date, sorry, the whole date. What if we don't want today's date? Maybe we want date in July 2019, 17th of July. Okay, so I chose that. If I click here, you see it's displaying the calendar date over there, and that's what this code is doing here. Date to string mcal input dot date. To get the actual month, day, and year, we don't use the month function or day function or year function. That's actually a different programming language. I got confused there. For the previous calendar, we had a property called month and day, and but for this calendar, the fancier one, we can only work on dot date. So for what your usage is, which program, what type of program you're going to write, all depends on which one you use, obviously. The year property can also be displayed from this one and also be changed as well. So day, month, and year can be displayed, and they're all integers. So I could actually put the year here for this simple calendar. Let's say year and dot year. Okay. Now, so that will display the year, month, and day from this calendar. We've set the month to 5, remember, in code, just to show the difference. But over here we have only the calendar date. If I go click that button, it's going to display the 15th because I clicked on the 15th. I actually, if I just click the button, if I click on 13, I click here, now it's displaying 13. Can you see what's happening? We don't have a cleared rich edit. The rich edit is just adding lines to it, adding lines. If we want to clear the rich edit for each button click, then we must do just like we did there, mem output.clear. So we'll say red output.clear, and then that will be displayed. Now, what about getting the month, day, and year from the calendar, this fancy calendar here? It involves string handling, which you haven't really covered, but as I said, this is a crash course, so let's do it. So we're going to do some string handling here, and to get the string handling out, we're going to do this already output dot lines dot add here. Let's pull out the year first. Plus. Now, we must remember, what does the calendar date look like? It is like this. I'm just going to describe YYY slash month slash day DD. Okay, that is the format of this my computer has been set at, and most computers are. Well, Delphi sets it as you saw in the display. It was 4 digits for the year, 2 for the month, and 2 for the day, and then we have these little forward slashes in between. Now each one of these characters, and I'm going to put this into a Word document. I'll go put it into an Excel spreadsheet quickly, because it shows it better there. We're going to copy different characters from that. I'll just set this up quickly. Now, if we know that it's 2020, that is the year, not so. And then we have a forward slash. Oh, my forward slash doesn't work for some unknown reason. That's strange. Oh wait, I know why it doesn't work, because you have to have a string. Okay, forward slash and then a naught and then a 4, and then we have another forward slash, and then we have today's date just happens to be the 4th of April, as luck would have it. And then of course that is your string. Now that is the string that we are looking at. It looks like that, and each character, my number 5 and my keyboard doesn't work, 5 and 10, each character is numbered. Now if you can realize that each character is numbered, then okay, that's better, you can see better maybe. Right, so each character, this is the date. Each character is numbered. I'll put the numbers in red for this. This is the string. Each character is numbered in this string here, the date of the mcal input, okay? And we are going to copy from that string. Well, once we've converted to a string, not so. We have to convert it to a string first. Yeah, date to string, but we're going to copy from it to get the year. And copy is a big long process. Copy is a whole new function. What we're going to do is we're going to copy from the first character, that one. And how many characters are we going to copy? 4, not so? So this is how copy works. You stipulate, and you have to learn this off by heart, which string are you copying from. Then, and this is in brackets, so you say copy, open brackets, the string you're copying from, then a comma, then a 1, and then another comma, and the number of characters that you want to copy. And there's your first use of copy. Now, why has that semicolon got a red lines because of brackets. Copy is actually all of this, okay? Copy has three things. The string you're copying from, there it is, date to string. Can you see the three things? Copy has three parameters. I call them parameters. Three things that are going off to be copied by this copy function. I thought there was a year function, month and day function, Delphi. I'm so stupid. Anyway, copy is a function that has three parameters. The first parameter is the string you're copying from. The second parameter is your starting position. And your third parameter is how many characters you're going to copy. So there's a bracket missing here because guess what? I've got a bracket here for my richeditor.lines.add. And remember, richeditor.lines.add has to have a closing bracket as well. So I'm going to close that bracket off there. Rightio. So there you have it. And you can run the program and see. I'll click on a random date here. Right, the year is 2020. Oh, we know that. Eh. Okay, so it's copied the year. Now what about the month? Now we're going to copy the month. So I'm copying and pasting this line, excuse the pun. I'm copying and pasting because it's so much easier. I'm going to type the month there. Yeah, right. And we're going to copy now from a different place. But before we copy from that different place, it's going to be a bit tricky. Actually, it won't be tricky because we can do this. We're not going to do delete now. It's easy because we know the set brackets are here. Character number 6 is where we're starting with, aren't we? And what if there's a 1 there? Well, we basically have to include both character number 6 and character number 7. Both of these characters have to be copied. Okay, that is the month. That is the year. Oops, sorry. That is the year which we copied. 4 characters starting at 1. And guess what? How many characters are this? 2 characters starting at 6. So we type in a 6 there and the number 2. That's easy, isn't it? Alright, then we're going to do the day. And guess what that is going to be? These two here. 2 characters starting at the number character 9. So now you've learned that strings have character numbers to them and we can do things with those characters, which is quite useful and fun. So we're starting at number 9 and we're going to copy 2 characters. And there you have it. Done and dusted. So click here. There it is. Of course it says 04. I haven't taught you how to get rid of the 4 O in front of the 4 yet. That's another lesson for another day. So that's that. We're basically focusing on input and output now. Now we're going to do this horrible radio buttons and checkboxes. The things that these have in common is that they are all going to be using Boolean data types. If I click on one radio group box, you'll see it has a true or false property checked, in other words, or checked or click. Where's it checked there? A checked property. That is what we're going to use, the checked property. If I change that to true, that you see it introduces a check. And this one can also have, it also has a checked property. In the radio group box, where there's a lot of radio buttons, it is an item index property that we're going to be looking at. Okay, an item index, just like the item index of the list box. So if item index is 0, then we know we're dealing with a 1. If item index is 2, we're dealing with a 2. If item index is 3, we could also use the items and item index. So that actually should be moved up there because it's very similar to those, isn't it? We're going to use the same same code as we did in the list box, but for the radio buttons on their own isolated here, we're going to have a checked property. And for the checkboxes, We also have a dot check property. Okay. So the dot check property is also going to be used. Right. Now for this one, the checklist box, we have items. Okay. And we'll have an item index as well. So this one can go all the way up there because we're going to use the item index. So it's not as bad as what we thought. Eh? It's only these two here, these singular ones have dot checked properties. And we're going to have to use what we call an if statement. It's simple English. If that is checked, we will display tired. If this is checked, we will display okay. If this is checked, we will display, well, that they like A. If this is checked, we'll display that they like B. But over here, we will display the same as we did with the list box. We will do the item index, items.item index, and we'll see what happens there. Now, let's decide where we're going to display what. I think we will display these things we'll put into the memo. So choosing 1, 2, or 3 and choosing one of those we'll display in the memo. Okay, so we'll click here and where shall we go? Remember it was, I'm going to put it over here because, yeah, well actually no, we already started, we cleared the memo right over here, didn't we? We have to be careful where we cleared our memo. If we're going to put things in the memo, we must make sure that we are in order in our code. So mem output.lines.add. What are we going to do now? We're going to take, we want to put in if the person chose 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to say I chose, let's write the sentence, I chose, and then we're going to put in our name of our RGB input dot items square brackets RGB input dot item index. So now that actually stops us from having to worry about the true or false property. It'll go straight and display those things. Alright, let's go and have a look now what's going to happen. If I click one of those, and I can say click here. Okay, everything else we've sorted. We're only dealing with this one. So, there we go. I choose 2. Okay, there we go. So it says I chose 2. Works just like the list box. And then this one will also work like that. Although there are true and false ultimately when you click on it, referring to them like that gives us the actual string that was chosen, not the item index, not the number, because remember that's 0, that's 1, that's 2. Peas is 0, sweet corn is 1, carrots is 2, broccoli is 0, potatoes is 1, carrots is 2. Oh, why have I got carrots again? Anyway, so here we have the checklist box where the people can choose many. They can choose any one of them. They can choose all of them. So this is going to be a bit of an issue. What if they choose all of them and you want to display that they chose all of them? You're then, let's go and see what happens. And over here, you can only display 1. And if you display none, well, there'll be an error. So might be an error, hey, if we don't click on one of those, which is where we come to error checking. Because if the person doesn't click on one of them, we have to make sure that they have clicked on one. Over here, we're going to have a problem because we have to display which ones did they choose. So we have to write even more complex code with if statements, if that is checked, if that is checked, if that is checked. So it was easy with this one because there's only one that they can choose from, but this one we have to go and write more complex code. So let's move this down here because that's going to be complex code. Hey, let's put it over here. It's complex. That was sort of complex. I'm first worried. I'm worried about the fact that if the person does not, when we run the program, it's gonna crash now. So remember we had Jane. Okay, if I click here, list index out of bounds, that's because people have not chosen one of these, and we've decided to actually use it in code. So we have to have an if statement there. Which will stop the program. And over here we set something, didn't we? Remember we had to set our combo box. we set this, and we're supposed to have set the combo box as well. When we use the combo box, CMB input dot item index equals 0 or 1. Sorry, sneezing. Right, now what we're back to this. If I run the program, what's happening? We have an issue because when we click here, list index out of bounds, it just means this thing has not been clicked on, and we have to have someone clicking, or you have to choose one. You can't just leave it empty. If you do leave it empty, we have to write complex code for the user to, for the program to bomb out. What we're going to do is, I'm going to write the complex code. Why not? If an if statement, you all know how to write talk in English. So if the index of that radio group box, if that is equal to -1, that means no one's chosen anything, then we will show a message and exit. Please choose a veggie, because that's the veggie, isn't it? And then we will exit. So when you go back to the code, oh no, choose 1, 2 or 3. Okay, please choose 1, 2 or 3. So RGB input dot item index. If it's -1, that means that nobody chose. So in other words, this is RGB input, nobody clicked on it. Okay, and what will happen is, after this message gets displayed, show message gives a nice little window showing you stuff. It's very simple, and all you do is write a message inside there in a string. And this is very simple code too. That exit means the program won't stop, but this button click process will end. In other words, all the lines after here, all of these lines won't happen. These lines will not happen. So that explains that little bit of code. And don't forget, begin and end is happening here. Why? Because if the item index is -1, we want to do two things. So if you're going to do more than one thing in if statements, we have to have begin and end. Wrap them up in begin and end. They come together as a parcel. These two things must happen. If you don't have begin and end here, then you're going to exit, and nothing's going to, it's just not going to work properly. The logic will be wrong. So if the item index is -1, which means if the user did not choose one of these, we are going to do two things. We're going to show a message and we're going to exit. And in order for those two things to happen, for that condition there, we have to wrap them up in begin and end. If we don't wrap it in begin and end, then there will be a serious problem in your code. The logic will be wrong. It'll still run, but it won't run properly. In fact, it'll exit. If you take this begin and end out, what's going to happen is it's only do one thing, and then nothing else will happen. Even if the person has chosen stuff, this exit means the whole program will close. I mean, not the whole program. The procedure, the button click procedure will close. We only want the button click procedure to close if the item index is -1 of this radio group input, that thing, the radio group. I could have put the code on these as well, but I'm not going to do that now. It's running out of time. We are going to just quickly click here. See? I didn't choose one of those. Those were automatically, I put them in. Remember, I put them in code, set them to those things. Please choose 1, 2, or 3. Okay, fine. So I'm going to choose 3. And then I click the button and everything is fine. I chose 3. Good to go. And the code for that is right over here. Just like in the list box and the combo box, we used it over there. But we chose RGB input.items, RG input.item index in square brackets. You have to memorize, there's no other way around it. Okay, so that is the memo there. Now, what else we want to put in the memo is this thing here, peas, sweet corn, and carrots. Now, that's quite tricky. We have to use if statements for each one of them. And remember, the item index is 0, 1, and 2. Not so? 0 for peas, 1 for sweet corn, 2 for carrots. So we're going to say if, oops, let's get back to the right line here. I want to put this in the memo. So I'm putting my code over here where memo output.lines.add is. So I want to say if CLX, the name of this thing is called CLX, sorry, CLX, there it is, there, CLX input. In my button click, before I go and finish displaying the memo, I'm going to say if CLX input dot item index equals 0, then I will display the memo dot lines dot add, and then I will say mem output, no, not mem output, sorry, CLX input dot items square brackets CLX input square brackets 0. Then I'll display the item. Why couldn't I have just done that? No, because there's more than one. You know, dot 0. There's more than one item. We have 3 different ones that they can choose from. So, okay. The CL dot, sorry. The item index is dot 0, isn't it? It is. Oh, square brackets. Item index, items 0. Oh, sorry. So stupid. This item index is an integer on its own. I don't say RGCLX input dot 0. I put the actual integer in there because this whole thing there represents an integer. So this thing is going to be an integer in there, dot items. Can you see the pattern there, dot items, and then you put an integer in square brackets. So we're going to copy and paste that because what if it's 1, 2, or 3? By the way, this is going on to a bit of term 2 work, so you're getting a bit of an edge here. If the item index is 1, then we'll put 1 inside this box and 2 inside that box. If the item index is 2, then we display the memo items box box number 2. well, box number 0, box number 1, box 2. This is items box number, whatever the item index is that is chosen. But for the checkbox, it works differently. The checklist box is going to be different because of the fact that we have three that they can have. They can choose all three if they want. So you don't know which one people have chosen. So you have to ask the question. If that is chosen, we'll do that. If that is chosen, we'll display that. If that is chosen, we'll display that. Or in the mem output.lines.add. So you'll run the program and yeah, I thought maybe I wasn't recording all of this. Anyway, run the program and then we will ding ding and choose and click. So peas, and why is the sweet corn not there? Because I chose sweet corn as well. Oh my word. It's only choosing one. Sweet corn, peas. What if I choose all three? Peas. It's only choosing one. Okay, let's see what's wrong with my code. Yeah, I'm making a bit of a mess here. Hey, never mind. If I make mistakes, and you learn from them. You know what I mean? Items 1. CLX. Checklist box. CLX, yes. It has many items that the person can choose. Item index number 0 is peas. Item index number 1 is that. Ah, stupid me. Right, guys. 0. Item. Item index. Inbox. Item index. So the dot check. We have to use the dot check property over here. It's not going to work otherwise. So, CL, if the checklist items, square brackets, CLX, you can see I don't use this component very often. Put dot item index dot checked. Oh, that's not going to work either. No, there's a check all there. Yeah. See, if it's checked all, then we have this issue. I still inbox dot see, we have dot checked. Oh, not create dot checked. Then okay, so let's see if that code works. Yep, there we go. So it's dot check note. So I don't use a checklist box. I don't know who uses them very often, but I don't. But you see, CLX input dot checked and square brackets note, which means if that is true, then we will display that one. And now I've just had to change that. If the dot checked property for that particular box is true. So we're actually checking to see if they have checked it. I mean, if they clicked on it, did they put a tick on it, you know? True, then. So I've changed that code drastically, and we've learned something today. In fact, I have too, because I don't use this checklist box very often, but I wanted to introduce it. These are easy here. because of the fact that you can choose one of them. That one is easy because, I mean, you can choose all of them, but this one is easy because you only have to choose one, you know. But yeah, we have an issue where we have to look at each one individually. If the dot checked is true for box number 0 and item number 1 and item number 2, then we display items number 0, items number 1, item number 2. So it's all a case of memorizing that. I'm glad I made that mistake. So maybe you guys will remember it now because I made the mistake. I know that always happens. Okay, click here. Please choose 1, 2, 3. Alright, fine. I forgot to do that. Okay, peas and sweet corn. Right, working now. Peas, sweet corn, and carrots. Yay, because I chose all of them. What if I just choose sweet corn? There we go. Sweet corn only. Okay, so there we have it. Next thing that we're going to do is, this is a long video, I'm sorry. Now we're going to go to these. We're going to use if statements for these checkboxes, and we're going to display it in the rich edit. Yeah, I mustn't do that. I mustn't double click. You mustn't double click rich edits, guys. It's stupid. Only double click the button that you're going to use. So you double click the button that you're going to use. And I'm going to display things in the rich edit. So here we come to our rich edit section. Right, so for the rich edit we're going to say, okay, click here if tied, click here if okay. Well, these are radio group boxes. You can only choose one of them, but because they're separate we have to check each one. This is RB, radio button tied, and radio button, radio RBN input. So we have to use if statements. Remember, it's the rich edit display. If RBN input dot checked equals true, then red output dot lines dot add I am okay, because that RBN input was okay. Then we have to have another question. If RBN tired dot checked equals true, then they say I am tired. Okay, so there's a whole lot of if statements. Take note how we did it. If that is checked is true, take note the equal sign in the if statements. There's no colon. Do you see that? It's because we're trying to see if it's true or false. We're asking if. We're not setting something. You only use a colon if you're setting something. You're saying this one equals that. This left-hand side equals that. And remember, the data types on both sides must be the same. Over here, the data types must be the same. But on the if statement, the data types must be the same. We call this data type a Boolean data type. Remember, we've had strings, we had integers, now we have Boolean. So if the Boolean, that is a Boolean data type, if that is equal to true, and that the left is Boolean, the right is Boolean, then we're going to display this. In the second one here, it's also dot checked is Boolean, true is Boolean, and we display. And take note, we're not bothered about if they say false, okay? Because I ain't got time for that. We're now going to do the checkboxes, the same thing. If checkbox is clicked, and if checkbox that is clicked, and we have to do, it's CBX. So this is actually easier. If CBX, what is it? If CBXA dot checked equals true, then we're going to display I like A. Or we can display the caption property, you know, of CBXA. You see CBXA.caption. We can also do that. So I can display, instead of saying I like A, I can say CBXA.caption will be displayed. We can do that. Why not? And then for B, we do the same. CBXB.checked equals true, then we'll display the caption property of CBXB. So those captions that are there, I like B and I like A, we could have done the same there, you know. We could have put in RB in tired dot caption instead of saying, you know, tired. Oh, we could have written it there. So there it is. That's that done. There's only one thing that I haven't done yet. But we can run this program and see, make sure it works. And of course, take note, we don't have to worry about whether we have clicked on any of these, because there's an if statement involved here, you know. That one we have to check. So it doesn't matter, because if we haven't clicked on them, there's an if statement saying, oh, but you haven't clicked on it, you know. And that as well, you know. But over here, if I click on them, there we go. If I click on those two that I like A and B, so he's okay and he likes A and B. Right, there's only one thing that we haven't done yet, and that's real numbers. The horrible real numbers. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I'm going to go and put in real numbers are horrible. Why? Because you have to convert them to strings to display them, and you have to convert them in a special way. So let's go get an edit box in here just to show you, demonstrate. I'm going to call this EDT real. Let's get real, folks. And then we're going to get the text property. And when I finish this is basically as far as I'm going to go. The .text property over here. Clear that. All right. Oh, wait. We still got to go and change these fancy things here. Anyway. They're going to put money in there, right? Let's say they're going to put money in there. Oh, no, not money. A real number. Any real number. We're going to convert it to whatever we want. So a real number means it's a number without decimals and so on. We also have to worry about whether that real number is actually a number, because remember, edit boxes, there's only strings that go in there. String, 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 string. And these are basically interchangeable Boolean data types, integer, date, and integers for these months and days, which is a bit nasty. I don't like that calendar much. I'd rather use this one. Anyway, so we've dealt with all the different data types of the input. This one is also, let's remember, that edit boxes are strings. So we have to take that string and convert it to, if it's a real number in there, or an integer, we have to convert it to a string to display it anywhere here. Let's just say we're going to display it in the memo. Okay, I'm just going to display it in the memo because I think I had more space there. Doesn't matter where we display. We'll display in the memo just for fun. So remember, that's a shape and that's a picture. That's not going to work. But anyway, the click here button, I double click, and I'm going to read stuff from EDT real. But it is a number, and I want to read it into a real data. No, I'm not going to use real data types now. Oh my word. Oh my word. We're not going to use variables now. Variables is chapter 2. I'm going to take that item from the EDT real.text. I'm sending it to a val procedure, which is going to return, or it's going to go rnum. It's going to try and put it into a real number, rnum, and it's going to return a code as to whether or not that was correct. Now, these are two variable names that I've made up that I'm going to use. I still have to declare them, but I'm making them up now as I go. What do they represent? Val is a Delphi defined procedure. I want to test that string that's in edtreal.text, that string, that input that the person typed in. We have to make sure that it is a number, otherwise the program will crash. So I'm going to check it first to see if it's real. And I do it in the following way. I take the string and I go and check to see if it's real by representing that rnum. That val procedure is going to take the string and try and put it into rnum. And if it doesn't, val's going to return a value in our code. And we're going to ask the question, if our code is not equal to naught, and guys, memorize this in the meantime, we will show a message, just like we did before. We don't want the program to crash, so we'll show a message. Please enter a number only. Doesn't matter if it's integer or real. In this case, we're checking to see if it's real. Please enter a number only, and then we'll exit. So we'll have a message, tell them, and then exit. You saw how it works. But now I've got to declare these as variables. They're going to be local variables, little placeholders, little parts of memory that's going to contain values, and we're going to put them over here just below the procedure. And this is how you do it. Sorry. So R num is real, R code is integer. That's how you declare variables. I want a real one and an R in front of it. R code, I made up the number and I'm going to make it an integer. So what's going to happen with val? Val is a procedure built in by Delphi. Take the string, tries to make it into a real number, and if it doesn't, then it gives out which character was not a number. Okay, for real numbers, yeah, we're checking for reals. Integers, you can use inum if you want to check to see if it's an integer, but for now we're dealing with real numbers. Okay, so if that works, then we're fine. We can carry on. Okay, then, you know, if our code is equal to naught, guess what? This code will not happen, and the process will move on to here. But if our code is greater than naught, we're going to have this issue here. These two things will happen. The procedure will exit and we don't have to worry. So we can safely carry on here with our code. I'm going to go and display already output dot lines dot add edt real dot text. Guess what? I'm going to format it. I can display it straight in the rich edit like that, or I can display it like this. What if I wanted to format it to a number, a real number? I haven't converted anything. I haven't taken that string and put it into a real number variable yet, have I? So let's go and make a variable called rInput, a real. Okay, so I'm going to say, if I didn't want to put it straight into that, I can go and do this. rInput equals string to float edt real dot text. So now we're taking the string. You see, left hand side, right hand side must be the same data type. String to float. Float is another word for a real number. Decimal point is a real number. Float to string. Float, a floating point decimal is a real number. So string to float. Floating point decimal, that's a real number, that's a scientific word. So the Delphi code says str to float. We're taking a string, converting it to a floating point number, and then you have that. Now we can go and display our number in the rich edit in a special way. And we do it in the following. Float to string. We can say rInput. This is one way. Or we can say already output dot lines dot add float to string f rInput. But if you're going to put an F here, F stands for format, and I'm going to make it a capital F so it stands out. We're taking the real number, and this is something you must memorize, and we going to display it as, let's in this case, currency. And we're going to, the total number of decimal points, we can have total number of digits, 8, and then 2 decimal points. So the total number of digits altogether will be 8. The number of decimal points will be 2, so it'll be rounding it off to 2, to the second decimal point. That's what that means. We can also display it a different way. FF fixed. What if you want to round it off to no decimal points? Well, we can keep it as 8.2, 2 decimal points. What if you wanted to round it off to the first tens? Then you say -1. If you want to round the first hundreds, so -2. But if you want to round it to 0 decimal points, you'll just put a 0 there, and that'll be that. And take note, you must make sure you have enough brackets at the end. Brackets must there's 4 things in brackets if you're going to use float to string f. These 4 items in brackets, you must just memorize this, people. 4 items in brackets, and then if you're using float to string, formatting, F for formatting. The rich edit.lines.add has to have strings in here. So this whole thing is a string. Float to string f. Can you see we float to string f? You can go and put in a, money plus, oops, money must be a, string, and then you join that to another string. That's the string that you're joining it to. So it's just a demonstration. So there we go. Let's go and put a number in and go and see what happens. 0.824 for want of, okay, let's go and choose some things there. Right, so this is what happens. First of all, it displayed it like that because we just didn't format it. Now we just displayed it into money, and there we have rounded it off to 236. Right, so now before we carry on with everything else, we have to do the last bit, and that is changing the shape to a circle and then changing the picture here. So I'm going to say, this is the easy part, shape output. So in my button click event, I'm going to say shp output dot shape equals sh, what is the prefix for shape types again? You can go look over here. st, so it's st circle. You could even change the size, but we're not going to go there now. And then of course the image, we can say img output. You want to change the image dot picture dot load from file, and in brackets you put the name of the picture. And I'm going to use the one called soap.jpg, which is in the folder. So you put your file name, your full file name there, picture.load from file, and then you need to say img image.stretch, although it is already equals true. So img output, there it is, done. Run the program, choose one, whatever, then click here. Please choose 1, 2 or 3. Oops, choose 1, 2 or 3. Alright, okay, please enter a number only. Oops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go, big long number. Okay, there's the number, and there's the picture, and there's the circle. Everything's hunky-dory. There's our amount. This is quite a big lot of money here. And then we have the rounded number there. And there's your picture. Okay, that's the end of that. I hope you enjoy your programming from now on. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.